Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is Rabi Mahmood and welcome back to lecture number 8. Today the topic of our discussion is Old English period, and with this Old English period it started from 449 to 1066. With this Old English period, before this, in our previous lecture we have discussed the primitive Old English period. The primitive Old English period, you have seen that although that was the initiation, that was the start, that was the rise of just the beginning of English language, so there were no marked events were there at that time. We have also noticed that England has become a part of Roman Empire. There were only a few minor changes in sounds that were noticed. So far as the consonants of the sounds are concerned, there were a few consonants that have changed, for example k into ch, and then again in primitive Old English period there were certain vowels that have also changed, vowels like front vowels, and there was a concept of umlaut, and that was a concept of front vowels that they have also changed their position at the time. Now Old English, while the primitive Old English period has led us towards Old English period, this is again one of the most primitive old period in the history of English language. The most primitive period. Before primitive Old English, that is actually Old English would be a continuation of the same thing. It is as we said that there were invasions that were going on in this time as well. So this period, one important aspect of this period is that this is marked with invasions. This is marked with the attacks, different nations were coming, they were conquering England, and they were creating their own regime and ruling over England at that time. Basically, you know that we are this is just an overview of the overall lecture that we are discussing right now. After this we'll move on to discussing each and every event in detail. Firstly, it is marked with invasions. This is the first point. Then in the next point we see that Anglo-Saxon language, Anglo-Saxons actually were the two tribes, the Angles and the Saxons. They were the two tribes, and their language was known as Old English language. Actually English language, the modern English language, is emerging from there. It is coming from there, and there are many influences that have that kept coming on English language with the passage of time in the later eras. While we just look at the language, what do we have to say about it? We can say that in Old English period, English is purely Germanic. Purely Germanic, you know, it is a descendant, as I have already told you, that English language is a descendant. It has come from that Germanic branch of family of languages. So within Germanic, English was there, so we can say it is purely Germanic. It too remained purely Germanic up till Old English period. It was highly inflected language with several literary standards. There were different literary standards, although not a lot of work and not significant work was done in the field of we say language, yet literature was a little of the literature was flourishing in that age, and there were several literary standards of English that were present at the time. Some of these standards were West Saxon was one standard dialect of English language present in this old era, Old English period. Then Mercian, and then Northumbrian and Kentish. These were the four dominant and prominent dialects that were present. Let's see what were these. Firstly, we'll start with the chronology of the events. We'll look at the historically that which event was important in which year. Then we'll move on to the major things that were done, the major contribution that this period has made in the English. Let's see that how did it start. Perhaps England has been inhabited for 50,000 years, and yet English has been spoken for only 1500. What an amazing fact. We see while we look at the English and we feel that it has been continuing for so many thousands and thousands of years, but the reality is that although England has been inhabited, people were there, people have been living in England, but perhaps they did not speak English. It is only 1500 is only that years when people spoke English in England. The timeline up to 5000 BC, it starts with the Paleolithic mans. In 2000 BC to 1500 BC, they were Neolithic men, may have been the Basques. This is one of the nations. Then from 1500 BC to 500 BC, it is known as Bronze Age. Celts are the first Indo-European speakers in England that we know of. We have already discussed so much of the Celts, and we see that Celts are the first one. They are the first language, they are the first family of the languages that who have lived in Indo-European countries, who have been an emergent of the Indo-European speakers, and they have been living in England, and they were the first one about which we know. In 55 BC, Julius Caesar attacks England after conquering the Celts in Gaul. He does not succeed in conquering the Celts in England. Yes, the England was attacked by the Julius Caesar. It is a very famous story, and perhaps you can in order to know about this Julius Caesar story, you can go and read Shakespeare's drama as well that was written about Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar attacks England after conquering the Celts in Gaul. Firstly, the Celts were conquered, and the place where they were conquered is the place of the Gaul. And then he does not succeed in conquering the Celts in England. By that time, while Celts were conquered, they were actually conquered in not in the Gaul, not in England, and perhaps up till now England was there at this place and it was not conquered by them. In 43 AD, Emperor Claudius gradually conquers the Celt in England. Yes, a very important historical year. We see that in 43 AD, the Claudius gradually conquers the Celts in England. Yes, the Celts were being conquered. The emphasis is on gradually. It was a slow process. It was not done overnight. It was not done over a period of weeks. Rather, gradually they started conquering it, and they conquers the Celts who were living in England. Before this, they were only conquered in one place, that was Gaul, whereas now the conquering things expanded and they invaded it now in 43 AD. Then in 61 AD, Celtic uprising led by Bordis, widow of a Celtic chief. Yes, in 61 AD there was an uprising. Uprising is actually to take care of something, to brought up something. The Celtics actually were brought up by the Bordis, and Bordis was actually a widow of a Celtic chief. Then another important event happened in 75 to 85 AD. Conquest was said to have been completed under the Roman governor Agricola. In 75 to 85 AD, conquest was said to have been completed. There was a complete conquest. Finally, it started stopping. Finally, the conquest of this England, of the Celts in the England, it started getting completed. and the emperor or the governor at that time was Agricola. In 410 AD, approximate date of Roman withdrawal. Yes, this was a time when perhaps the expansion and the migration completed. It was totally invaded and the Romans were expelled, and perhaps 410 AD is said to be that approximate date of Roman withdrawal. Let's start at major things with the first focus on 449 AD. Approximate date of Germanic invasions coming from continental Denmark and the Low Countries. Yes, 449 is the two important things are there. The first one is it is said to be an approximated date, perhaps because different people have reported differently, and perhaps because it is about too much olden eras, so the people are not that much sure about these things. Yet it is said that 449 AD was the date of Germanic invasions coming from the continental Denmark. These Germanic invasions were coming from where? From continental Denmark and the Low Countries. They were coming from Denmark as well as some other Low Countries. The tribes included the Angles, Jutes, Saxons and Frisians. These are the four tribes that were coming as in Germanic invasions. The first three tribes are very much famous because they have because of these two tribes, the period has been regarded as the Anglo-Saxon periods or Old English period as well. We have the state and know a little about their culture through Bede's Ecclesiastical History of the English People, completed in 731. In 731, there was a book that was written by Bede, and this was a history of ecclesiastical history of the English people, and it was actually written by Bede, and we get to know about all these things and in his book, and it was published in 731. The entries in the chronicle indicate only a general way the succession of the settlements, which extended over a century. It kept invading, it kept expanding the things, and it is extended over a century almost. We know that the nature of Germanic invasion was different from the Roman one, as the former displaced the Celts while the latter ruled them. Yes, there are the two main things, two important points right now. We know that the nature of Germanic invasion form was different from the Roman one. Yes, there were the two main kinds of invasions that were made. The first one was Germanic invasion, and the second was Roman invasion. Both Germanic as well as Roman invasion, both of them are very much important, but actually the difference between the two is that the first one that is known as Germanic invasion, it displaced the Celts who were already residing there in those territories. These Germanic came and then they expelled them, they invaded it, they attacked it, and they grabbed the place, they grabbed the property, while the later ruled them. Whereas the difference between Roman and Germanic is that of the rule. The Romans ruled them. The Romans made a kind of you can say a stateship. They ruled, they reigned over the Celts. Now let's see, when these tribes were attacked and invaded, what they did and what were their achievements, what has made any contribution in the development of language up till now. Let's talk about the Anglo-Saxon civilization, because these were the tribes who have invaded. This civilization founded on comitatus relationship between lord and the thane, and it was organized according to the Alls and Cyrols. Yes, this was actually a relationship between, as if the gods, as if there is one class that is very much superior and there is other class who is very much inferior. It was actually about the relationship between the two classes, and it was formed. In times, various tribes combined and allied in small kingdoms, 7 of which were eventually recognized as the Anglo-Saxon heptarchy. Yes, heptarchy, the word heptarchy is important, and let me explain it once again. In times, various tribes combined. There were different tribes who were combining actually, and who allied in the small kingdoms, who were living collectively in some small kingdoms, and 7 of which were eventually recognized as the Anglo-Saxon heptarchy. Yes, out of all those small tribes, there were 7 tribes. They were recognized as Anglo-Saxon heptarchy. The heptarchy included Mercia, East Anglia, Northumbria, Kent, Essex, Sussex and Wessex. Yes, perhaps a few of them are really very important even these days. Look at these tribes. The first one was Mercia, East Anglia, Northumbria, Kent, Essex, Sussex and Wessex. Of these, Wessex became the dominant under the Egbert, and more prominently under King Alfred. In the era of King Alfred, out of these 7 tribes, and these 7 tribes firstly emerged out of many several tribes that were there. Then these 7 tribes, within these 7 tribes, there was one tribe that was very much dominant, that became very much successful, and in the era of King Alfred. Language. The various dialects spoken by the Germanic tribes are known as pre-Old English. Okay, definitely there were many languages, there were many dialects that were spoken, and these dialects are known as pre-Old English. The term England developed later from the tribal name Angles, possibly because the kingdom was dominant. Okay, there were actually the Angles and there were the Saxons. These were different tribes, and this term England is actually, it has been derived from the word Angles, possibly because kingdom was dominant in those days. It was a very dominant, and it was, one was dominant, and when one is dominant, you know, it starts getting accepted. It starts getting accepted and acknowledged by over a large number of people. When people accept it, so they become kingdom, and the kingdom that is very much dominant. Main dialects. The term Anglo-Saxon will refer to the West Germanic tribes generally. Yes, actually this is our reference while we say that there were the Anglo-Saxons. Anglo-Saxon refers to the tribes. It's not a kind of language. Rather, the important point to note here is that it is about the West Germanic tribes generally. Old English was not entirely uniform, and 4 main dialects were predominant. It was actually Old English is made up of different tribes. These different tribes were not very much uniform in their nature. They were not similar. They have although there were some similarities, but they have differences as well. But at the same time, the position of the language and the dialect was that there were 4 main dialects that were predominant. The first dialect was that of Northumbrian dialect. The second was of Mercian dialect. Third of West Saxon dialect, and Kentish dialect, another dialect that was prominent. Nearly all of Old English literature is preserved in the West Saxon dialect. We can see while we talk about literature, the Old English literature, it was preserved, it was kept, and it was saved for the upcoming generation in the West Saxon dialect. because perhaps this being more prominent one out of these, so the literature was preserved in this dialect. Yes, few primary characteristics of English. The first one is spellings and pronunciations. Spellings and pronunciations. The first primary characteristic of English language is that the first one, the long vowels have undergone extensive change due to the great vowel shift. As before this, we have talked about great vowel shift, and we have said that the long vowels have already undergone extensive change. There has come a great change due to this vowel shift, and so there was a change in the Old English, there was a change in the pronunciation, and then later on in the spellings as well. Then another characteristic is that there were different letters that have been introduced. Letters are, as you know, as alphabets. As we are talking about the sounds, and we are saying that sounds have been changed, so was the case with the letters. The spellings changed, the letters changed, and it made a change to the overall English. There were no unstressed syllables. Primary stress usually occurred on the first syllabus. Yes, a very interesting thing to note in the pronunciation category is that there were no unstressed syllables. No unstressed syllables. Syllables, I told you earlier, is a puff of air while you speak. As I was saying that I have a mobile. It has got three puffs. Mobile. I have laptop. These are the two words having two syllables. That is a watch. Watch is again one single syllable. I is a single syllable. Okay, these are the two puff of airs, and it has two words. I hope now you have a little idea about the syllables. One important thing about the Old English syllable is that there were no unstressed syllables. No unstressed. As we are right now stressing and emphasizing on a few of the stresses, we are putting force. For example, putting force in this word as well. Putting, two syllables. Force, one syllable. In putting, I am emphasizing, I am paying more stress on the first syllable, that is putting. Ting is not stressed. The first one is stressed, put. So there were no unstressed syllable, and quite amazing to note that there were no unstressed. How can this be possible? How could they have been putting stress on each and every syllable? Primary stress usually occurred on the first syllable. If there was a stress, definitely unstressed syllable was not there, and when there was a stress, it usually occurred at the first syllable, on the first, as in cake. The stress is on K, not on K. Cake. Or in 8, the stress is on 8. Extra letters. There were some extra letters that were also introduced. For example, the letter, yes, this letters, as it is used in thorn, it was used in uppercase this way. It changed its case. It is taken from the runic alphabet, and it is used for th and the. These are the two words. This is pronounced as th, as in teeth. whereas this word is the, as in the. Okay, these are often interchangeable with the in manuscripts. For example, this, it's what the section in this has been changed with this one. Then the word thing, it has been changed with this letter. To need, it has been changed with this letter. Yes, there were some extra letters, they were introduced in Old English time. Yes, C could represent K before back vowels and consonants or finally. Yes, C could represent, it was another important feature was that C could represent K, not in, as sometimes C also represents in modern English a chair. C refers to C in Cipheron, in cipher. Okay, C refers to chair as in chair. C refers to catch as in catch, K. In the Old English period, they said that it represents, C refers to K. As in the back vowel, when it comes before K, you know, the C would represent K, not S sound or not Ch sound. And consonants or finally, for example, in Kal, it would be regarded as Kol, C. And if there is one word, for example, this C here, this here, it would be regarded as cold. It would be rather pronounced as cold. Then Sweden, to say, it would refers to here, C would refers to say. AC means but, and AC to ok. It's not C, it's a K, ok. C but also could also represent C before the front vowels, as in child. It could refers to ch as well. Lice, like similar, here the C would represent K, and it means similar to. There are some consonants. Perhaps this thing will not be making a great sense to you. The reason being that this is an English of Old English era, so the things were like this at that time, and you need to understand it this way. Yes, the consonants. No phonemic voiced fricatives were used in the Old English period. No phonemic voiced fricatives. We talked about voiced when there is a vibration into your local cords, it is voiced. And while we talk about fricatives are those words when we pronounce them, there is some friction in the speech. For example, the words like v, it's a friction. Then in z, it's again a friction. You can see the friction that is coming out of your mouth. And then also in th, you would see that there is a friction going on. Allophones of the voiceless fricatives were also found. Then fricatives voiced between voiced sounds, that is voiced consonants and all vowels. There were some consonants and the vowels that were voiced were also found in the consonants of Old English period. For example, look at the first example. The first example is that of risen. It's z. It's the z sound. Grass. It's grass. S again is a fricative. Oath. I take an oath. It's o and th. It's o and th. Okay. Riden. This is riden. Then knife. the C would be silent in the modern English, as you know, but as we are talking about Old English, it's knife, knife, perhaps with the k sound. Okay, then is knives, 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 and knives. The here C sound stands for k, and this is knives. Hence, path or the paths, life or the lives. Again, some phonemic voiced fricatives were changed with the voiceless fricatives. Then there were some phonemically long words as well that were found in the vocabulary of Old English period, and these words were doubled consonants that have like lots of consonants, or we also call these consonant clusters, indicated by the double letters. For example, prayer, prayer. Let's try to find it out. Bed and prayer, bed and bed. Filen to beaufoul and filen to fill. Bidden, red dog, home and homemade. Yes, these are some of the doubled words that have consonant clusters. Consonant clusters, let's talk about consonant clusters now, where the consonant clusters is a kind of situation in the speech sounds where the two consonants come close to each other and they are pronounced together. For example, the first one is h and l. This is h and l. The two clusters, the two consonants, they're coming together. And try if it can be pronounced hull. Is it hull? Would be harder to pronounce, yet this is the thing that is known as consonant clusters. The second is h and the r. h, r. Again, her. The two consonants coming together, harder to pronounce, yet they come in a few of the sentences and they are represented through the language. And see what is the next consonant cluster. This is h sound and then the n sound, and then h sound, and the next is v, v. See how what does the sense does it make? How became, v, became. Then what, again what, pronounced or not. And then again k sound, the k and n, the two are coming together in the Old English. You know, in the modern English, this word is pronounced as, this is now pronounced as night. Yes, you are right. Whereas in the older English, it was knished. It was knished. The second is, yes, yeah, it's knee. It's not knee. Although, as we are talking about the consonant clusters, we call it knee. K and n, the two sounds are coming together, it is making a consonant cluster. Gnat, gnat. The word g, gnat, where g and n. Sometimes in our English, in our modern day English, the first, when there is a consonant cluster, most of the time one of the consonant is not pronounced at all. For example, in nose, there is a consonant cluster in this word, k and o w, s, nose, k and n. So but one becomes silent and the other is pronounced. It is nose. Look at some other examples that are given. Gnorian, mourn, feel sorrow. Yes, the next is the vowels. Long versus short vowels. not like, ride or ride. There were some vowels, there were some long vowels, there were some short vowels as well in the Old English period, and it's not there are some vowels that are right. It's rid rather than ride, rid and raid. Okay, they were generally held for longer. These were the vowels that were generally held for longer period of time. Let's look at the word stock. Let's see that how these things have contributed, whether there was a vocabulary bank, whether there was some kind of vocabulary that is collected, that was collected in this period of time, or what was that, what were the features of Old English period. Let's look at the word stock. Word stock is also known in simple words in as it is vocabulary, as all of you know, but there is another word that is a terminology that is used to refer to the word stock. It is known as lexical items. Lexical items. Yes, these are lexical items. Word stocks are also known as lexical items of a language that make up a language. Nearly 85% of the Old English words are no longer in use. Yes, as you can see that today's modern day English is so much changed. It's not the same as it used to be. They are not in use. Those that remain are basic elements of our vocabulary, and also absent are many borrowings from Latin and French. However, language was still poetic mainly through the use of the compounds called canons. Yes, the language has maintained so many things. There are, but still at the same time there are many words that were not there, that have already been lost. Grammar. Old English grammar was primarily a synthetic language, whereas modern English is primarily analytic. Yes, a very big difference between Old English and modern English. The Old English was synthetic and this is analytic. Synthetic is the synthesis, is the making up of the language, where the things get together. It's a synthesis, we say. Old English, it was primarily a synthetic language. That the language that we are looking at some of the French borrowing, we are looking at the words that were given by Germanic invasion, by some Roman invention, the different tribes that came up, they gave their own vocabulary and they made up this bank, this Old English period. And we are saying this, we can say that it is synthetic. It is a synthesis. It has some mix-up, lots of mix-up of the rest of the languages rather than having something on its own. Whereas modern English is primarily analytic. Yes, no doubt it is analytic because we analyze it. We have been analyzing modern English on different levels of language that we have already discussed. There are so many researches that are being done. For example, starting from phonetics and phonology, it moves on to morphology, it moves on to the sentence level, that is the grammar, syntax to semantics, and after semantics it moves on to another further level, and that is pragmatics to discourse. And we can simply say that perhaps the things are moving this way. Firstly, the sounds make up words make up phrases, or they also make up clauses, or they also make up sentences. Yes, these sentences, this is all about the grammar, or what we call a syntax. Grammar, what we call is a syntax, Sounds are in phonetics and phonology. Words, morphemes, yes, then these sentences would leave us towards the meanings of sentences. And where do we study? We study it in semantics. Meanings further elaborate, and then we talk more about the meanings, but keeping one thing in mind, that is a context. And we do this in where? In pragmatics. Context finally leads us towards the most broader level of the language, that is discourse. So you can see that how from single word, how from single sound, the things are joining up, they are making up, and they are moving on to the most broader level, that is the level of discourse. This is how that we can say that a modern English is much more analytic rather than synthetic one, because Old English was more synthetic, where the things were synthesized, where it was as if it was a chemical formula, mixing up of different things and making up one thing. As a result, Old English is highly inflected language. Yes, we are going to look at some of the foreign influences on the Old English that were there. The main, as we already discussed, a few of them. One is Celtic, Latin, and then the Scandinavian differences. Yes, Celtic influence on English language, although it was very much meager, yet it was there. Celtic words are preserved primarily in the place names. There are two main group of words. Yes, the two main group of words. The one is the popular words, and those that were introduced. Yes, popular words were which words? The words that the Anglo-Saxons learned through everyday contact with Celtic natives. They learned these words through everyday contact with the Celtic natives, and number two, the word that were introduced through Irish missionaries. Yes, the important is Irish missionaries in the north. One is coming from the interaction with the Celtics, and the second stream of influence is coming with the with its introduction to the Irish missionaries in the north. These two things combined, and they made up the Celtic language, and then they made some influences on the Old English language as well, not only on the period but also on the language as well. Second influence is that of the Latin influence. This Latin influence is divided further into the three main periods in the Old English. The first influence of the Old English period is that it occurred on the continent before Germanic tribes penetrated into England. Yes, it started at the very initial time, and this was a time before Germanic tribes penetrated into England. Even before this influence started, even when Germanic tribes have not entered, it means we are talking about the prehistory. It means that we are talking about some very olden era. Yes, we do. We are talking about even when the Germanic tribes penetrated into England, it started before them, and the borrowing reflects early contact between Germanic tribes and the Roman Empire. Yes, the borrowing that is there in the language, this borrowing, it is a reflection of the early contact between Germanic tribes and Roman empires. Between Germanic tribes and the Roman empires. Yes, it was done actually by definitely the interaction of the two things. A thing on its own is never going to change. As you would remember the law of Newton, that every action has its reaction. When we are continuously talking about the language change, we say that languages are changing. How they are changing? They are changing by the interaction, they are changing by the diffusion, they are changing by the expansion, they are changing by the invasions, by some influences that were caused by these invasions. Yes, this borrowing reflect early contact, and their actually borrowings is a term that is used in the language. And we say borrowings is actually when one language that is existing, it borrows some words from others, from other languages. Yes, that is known as borrowing. Borrowing reflects early contact between Germanic tribes and Roman empires. Between the two tribes, it reflected, it showed that yes, there was some interaction between those tribes, and that's why these words have taken place. And so this was the one of the influences. Influence of the first period. It acquired by the Celts after invading England. The first old was, it started where? It started even before the Celts were invaded. The Celts who were already residing there, but still they were not invaded. And initially today in our lecture we have seen that England, we say that England has been inhabited for 50,000 years, and English has been spoken over there only for 1500 years. Look what a huge difference it really is. It does not, England does not mean that the people who were living there, they were speaking English, and England is there. There were many tribes, as you have seen, there were many influences, there were many things, many nations, many countries, many invasions that were being done, and that have caused a change in English. Yes, now while we have discussed the first influence of the old period, that was when even before the England was invaded, and in that period, what was influence? The influence was actually about the borrowings, about the borrowed words that were there, the borrowed words that existed and that got ready, that were there, they were found in the language just by the borrowing of the borrowing that was resulted from the interaction of different tribes. Now in this period, they acquired by the Celts after invading England. The England was invaded, the Celts were invaded, and this was the influence, and other kind of things started, and this again started making influences on English. Influence of the second period. When Roman missionaries introduced Christianity, it at that time actually influence of the second period started. When Christianity was introduced, when we are talking about Christianity, it means now there is another aspect that is going to add, that is going to contribute towards the development of the language. And what is that aspect? That aspect is aspect of religion. Now religion is coming, religion is making a change. Christianity was introduced by the Roman missionaries, and see how it has made a difference. Actually this period, the second period, it can easily be broken into the two periods. As you see that it can be broken into the two periods. The first one is early and the second is late. The early period, it started in 597, and it started with Saint Augustine, and when Saint Augustine was sent to Christianize the Anglo-Saxons, the conversion was gradual and lots of churches and monasteries were built. Yes, a change is taking place, a change in the history of some country, it's not only a geographical change that simply people came, invaded, and they got the land. No, people came, people invaded, they got the land, they started ruling. When they are ruling different, they are implementing their own rules. In this 599, when Saint Augustine sent to Christianize, he sent a few missionaries, a few religious people to Christianize the Anglo-Saxons. How they were Christianized? The conversion was gradual and lots of churches and monasteries were built. Yes, slowly and gradually people started become Christian, and because of these different churches and monasteries were built, because once people are converting into some other religion, so definitely they are ready to accept it, they are willing to take it. Look at the second period, that is the late period, and see what happened in this. Benedictine reform because of Danish invasions at the end of the 8th century. Now we are coming towards the end of 8th century, and we see that Benedictine reforms were made. And why these reforms were made? Because there was another invasion, another thing, and this thing was Danish invasions. When? At the end of 8th century, Danish invasions were made, and by the end of the 8th century, and everything, as I just told you, everything is making a change. Geography, the people, the rules operating in a country, each and everything was being influenced. The language that they spoke, the things that they do, everything was being changed, and everything was being influenced because of these things. Now, how do linguists determine when a Latin word entered the language? There is definitely a question. How did you determine? How do the linguists determine? How do the language experts determine that a word has entered into the language? The number one, it is frequency in the Old English text. Yes, they would see, yes, how many times it has been repeated. Frequency is about the repetition of the things. They would look at the character of the word. What is the stature of the word? They would also look at the phonetic form of the word. What is the origin? What is the phonetic form? What kind of word it really is? What is its manner of articulation? What are these places of articulation? The things like that. It is going to look into those details. Yes. Within phonetic form of the word, they would also see that I umlaut, is it actually a combination of the words and making a change in it. And then palatal diphthongization. Palatal, something that is related to your palate, the sounds that are pronounced through your palate. Palate is a part of your upper edge that comes behind your teeth, that comes before your oral cavity, that comes after your teeth. The upper part of the mouth is known as palatal. The front part, one is the hard palate and the second is soft palate. There are some palatal sounds as well that are pronounced with the hard palatal, that are pronounced with the hard palate. Diphthongs are those vowels where the two vowels come together to make one single sound. For example, look at this, these two vowels. A, it's A, E. A, this is the first vowel. E is the second vowel. A, it makes 8. Then some sound changes of vulgar Latin. They would see that how the sounds are changed, and then they would also look at the breaking process. These are some of the things with which the linguists are going to determine the change the change in a language with which they would see that a Latin word has entered into the language or not. Now the third influence. The third influence is that of Scandinavian influence. Three main attack periods were done in the Scandinavian influence. The first attack was the period of the early raids. It was recorded by the Anglo-Saxons Chronicle in 787 and continuing intermittently until 850. Intermittently with the passage of time. It started in 787 and with the passages of the time it continued towards 850. The work of it's about the second attack period. It was about the large armies. They were widespread plundering. They were spreading all over. In 850, a Danish fleet arrives, captures Canterbury and London, and ravages the countryside. A West Saxon army defeats them, but soon they resume attacks. Short after Alfred's accession to throne, Wessex is attacked. Yes, did you know this was Alfred? King Alfred was a very important king. When he was there was an accession or the murder of the king, Wessex, the whole of the area that he gave much importance to, it was attacked by some other by some outsiders. At one point, Alfred has to hide in the marshes. He regathers troops and later attacks and defeats Guthrum and Danish army. After this defeat, the Danes agree to sign the Treaty of Edmure, which defined the line to east of which the foreigners were to remain. Their designated land was known as Danelaw. This was actually a Danish invasion, where the Danes came and they made it their own territory. We are going to look at it in a very detail in our next lecture. So if you don't understand it for the time being, just leave it and we'll move on and we'll do some rest of the things and we will cover it up in an upcoming lecture. Actually, it was necessary to mention it here because it is a part of the Scandinavian influence. It is one of the attacks that were done. Now, the third attack. The period of political adjustments and assimilation of 878 to 1042. There was not only the religion was introduced, not only different missionaries were there, not only different attacks were going on, invasions were there, attacks were there within the whole region. Actually, it was also a period of political adjustments. The political state is governed by, the politics is there. It is state, it is governance of the state as well. When the certain things are going on, at the same time some political adjustments were also going on from 878 and to 1042. Guthrum frequently broke faith, but situations improved under the reign of Alfred's son. When Alfred died, his son became the next king, and his name was Edgar, and the things were quite well as the things were in the reign of the father. And the great son Athelstan also came there as sometimes as a king later on. End of the Old English period. Towards the end of the century, new invasions began. Yes, as you have seen, there are so many invasions that are going on. There are so many things that were going on in that era, not only on the part of the religion, on the part of the politics, but also on the part of the language and the culture. Towards the end of the century, new invasions began. A Viking fleet arrives in 991 and is recorded in the Battle of Malden. In 994, Olaf became king of Norway and was joined by the Danish king Sweyn in a new attack on London. Sweyn succeeds in conquering England as they can no longer buy him off. In 1014, he seizes the English throne and became king, driving off Ethelred the Unready. This is another invasion that was there and that had made a difference to Old English period. We are going to look at in our next lecture in detail the Vikings attack and their influence, that how was they and was there any contribution, was there any change that it brought to the study of language and England overall. The Old English period ends with the Sweyn's sons, not as a king of the England. Now there was a new king. The King Alfred is gone, its son and the grandson has also gone. Now it was a period of some others, Stephen's son. The blending of the Danish and the English was not so difficult because the Danish were adaptable. Yes, they started adapting the things. Adaptable is try to be like them, try to behave like the others. The Danish were not really foreigners, and many of them accepted Christianity early and readily. Yes, they were quickly absorbing the cultures, not only the power and politics, but also the religion. We must infer the relation of the two languages because we do not know much. Their similarity makes it difficult to date many words. For example, the word, the first one, Old English period, the Danish word is skirt, and in English it is shirt. Skr has been changed with the shirt. Scandinavian had hard pronunciation of K and G. Vowels may be a sign of borrowing. O sound as A sound in Danish. We can look to the meanings of the words, and Scandinavian place names were still existing there. What was the results? Words were borrowed gradually. Yes, the important note, the important word is gradually. The emphasis is on the slow transition of the things. During the first attacks, borrowings were meager and were associated with the sea roving people. Yes, the people who used to rove over the sea, who used to come there for the trade, it was associated with them, but later on it expanded. Later, after Danelaw, words related to law and government, Scandinavian and English coexisted. Which words survived? Do you know? It's a food for thought for you. There were different words that survived. The first one was where words coexisted and were similar. The modern word stands for both the Old English and the Scandinavian. Where there are differences, the Old English most often survives. Sometimes the Scandinavian word replaces the Old English. Occasionally, both words survive but with different meanings or use. A native word not in common use was sometimes reinforced by the Scandinavians. An Old English word might be modified, taking on some character of the corresponding Scandinavian word. These were some of the results that came out of the study of Old English period. Now, a quick recapitulation. We have already gone through in very detail the Old English period, and see how did we start and how did we end. We actually started by discussing the chronology of the events. We have seen that how different years are divided for some specific task, and how different things were carried out in different periods. Then we have also looked at Anglo-Saxon civilizations. We saw that what kind of civilizations they were, who invaded whom, and we also looked at the influences that they made. Then we looked at the language and the dialects as well. The language and the dialects were the things that have acquired some change. The dialects are the regional varieties. They have also acquired some change. There were many languages and many dialects. All of them definitely were not very popular. Firstly, a few of them became popular, then one became as a standard dialect of the standard language. Then we have also seen many examples of the change in the word stocks and the grammar today. We have looked at the grammatical structure, that how Old English differs from the modern English. We have also looked at the foreign influences, and we had seen that these foreign influences were basically divided into three categories. And with this we came to the end of Old English period, and with the end of Old English period we said that there were some other invasions that were going on, and we are going to talk about these invasions in our upcoming lecture. The results of the Old English period were the things that have been changed in the Old English period because of some invasions and the interaction with the people. The religion came up, the politics and the power came up. There were different issues that have been arising in the history of Old English up till now. So we have completed our today's lecture, and we'll see in our upcoming lecture that who were Vikings and how was their attack, and how did they make an impact on the study of English language. Until then, take good care of yourself, and I'll see you again in the next lecture. Till then, Allah Hafiz.